Hey everybody, how's it going? Extreme Trends here, and welcome to the top 15 lies we were all taught in school. Now, when you're in school, you put your utmost faith in your teachers to tell you the truth, right? After all, we're all young and very impressionable. With that being said, it might surprise you to know that some of the things that we thought we knew were to be true were in fact actually a big fat lie. I know it's hard to digest, but today we're going to take a trip down memory lane to re-educate you on what is right and what is wrong. It might be a shock to the system, but get your notepads at the ready. Number 15. Was Humpty Dumpty actually an egg? We all know the classic nursery rhyme that tells us of the tragic fall of poor Humpty Dumpty. The silly egg fell from a giant wall and shattered into 1,000 pieces, and all of the king's horses and all the king's men just couldn't put Humpty together again. Well, brace yourself, because Humpty Dumpty wasn't actually an egg at all. If you really think about it, the word egg was never mentioned in the nursery rhyme. Evidence suggests that Humpty Dumpty was actually a cannon used by the royalties during the English Civil War. After being used in battle, the cannonball fell off a wall and was unable to be recovered. Sorry for ruining your childhood. Number 14. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. If you love science class, then you may want to look away now. Famous inventor and businessman Thomas Edison is credited with giving us all a gift of electric light in the form of the light bulb. Not only that, but he also invented the phonograph and the motion picture camera. While there's no denying Edison's talents, there's one flaw in his seemingly pristine reputation. 25 years prior to Edison's successful test on the light bulb in 1879, German inventor Henry Goebel had created a near-identical version, making him the original pioneer of electric light. Because Goebel never got a patent for his work, he could never successfully challenge Edison. Number 13. Sweet, salty, bitter, and sour are detected on different parts of your tongue. The famous myth of the tongue map still commonly circulates around playgrounds today. Who doesn't like the idea of their tongue having different areas that taste different parts? It's a whole lot more exciting than the truth. Sadly for us, our tongues aren't that clever, and they taste everything equally across its entirety. So if you're like me and you grew up licking all of your foods to see which part tasted which, don't worry, I feel pretty stupid too. Number 12. There is no gravity in space. In the movies, we always see astronauts floating around, repairing broken space stations attached to the craft with some sort of device to stop them from floating away into the vastness of space. Because there's no gravity in space, right? Wrong, because in fact, there is gravity in space, just not a great deal of it. Every object that has mass has some sort of gravitational pull, and space is no exception. It's just a small amount of microgravity that keeps the moon and other planets in place. If it didn't have that, everything would be floating all over the place, and there would be no such thing as orbit. Number 11. Newton discovered gravity after an apple fell on his head. Keeping on the same track here, let's look at the famous discovery of gravity. I don't know about you, but an image of an apple falling on Isaac Newton's head is what got me through science class, but as it turns out, that is not true either. Although Newton was sat near an apple tree when he began theorizing about gravity, he wasn't actually hit on the head by a falling piece of fruit. It does make a nice story though, so perhaps we should keep telling it just to make life a little bit more interesting. Number 10. Vikings wore horned helmets. A burly Viking man with an axe in one hand and a helmet adorned with horns strapped to his head, ready for battle. I'm sorry to break it to you, but while Vikings did wear helmets, they were nowhere near as exciting. Despite years of archaeological digs, no one has ever found a Viking helmet with horns. The image was just conjured up in the 1800s when Scandinavian artists like Gustav Malmsteen began to include horned helmets in their paintings. It soon caught on, and before you knew it, the lines between reality and fiction were suitably blurred. Number 9. Napoleon Bonaparte was a very short man. French political leader and master tactician Napoleon Bonaparte is often depicted as being a man of small nature in both books and films alike. Although at the time of his death in 1821, he was listed as being 5 foot 2 inches tall. This was in French units. In today's measurements, that would make him a relatively average 5 foot 7. What's more, the standard height of a Frenchman man in the 1800s was just 5 foot 5. So really, Napoleon was pretty tall for his time. If that doesn't blow your mind, then wait till you hear these other lies that you've always been taught in school. Number 8. Chameleons hide by changing color to camouflage with their surroundings. Now this one is a little bit interesting. If you spent a lot of your childhood and even adulthood wishing for a lizard as a pet, then you might be surprised to know that a chameleon doesn't change its color to match its environment as commonly thought. Any changes in the appearance of one of these little guys isn't due to their desire to match the decor, but actually comes about as a response to mood, temperature, health, and even as a reflection to light. If this disappoints you, then just think of a chameleon as a living mood ring. Number 7. Christopher Columbus proved that the world was round and not flat. Adventurer Christopher Columbus is credited with a lot of bogus things, and discovering the world was round was one of them. The original theory that the world was round surfaced from Greek mathematicians about 2,000 years before Chris was even a twinkle in his father's eye. So while he did believe the world was round, so did many of his peers. Tales of Columbus sailing the world with a crew and nervous that they would fall off the edge of the planet are also untrue. Number 6. Humans descended from chimpanzees. I can hear your cries of protest already, but sadly, this is another big fat lie we've all come to believe as gospel truth. While it may be a very plausible theory that we evolved from chimps, it's still just that, a theory, and a commonly misunderstood one. In reality, both humans and monkeys evolved from a common ancestor that was around 25 million years ago. The theory is much more complex than usually thought, but in short, we did not evolve from monkeys, apes, or even King Kong, but we do share around 93% of our DNA with the rhesus monkeys. If you think you can handle it, then let's move on to the final 5. Number 5. Chalk is made from chalk. If you went to school back in the days when they still had a good old-fashioned chalkboards and erasers, then you'll remember all too well those little white sticks. Chalk is chalk, like the sky is blue, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but most modern chalk is actually made from mineral gypsum and not chalk at all. What's the difference, you may ask? Well, chalk is a calcium carbonate, while gypsum is a salt. While both are commonly mined, it's gypsum that is more widely used. You can't just trust anyone these days, can you? Number 4. The Day of Independence Declaration was signed July the 4th, 1776. If this is news to you, don't worry, as it was news to me too. The infamous declaration is celebrated every year in America on July the 4th. In actuality though, documents uncovered from the secret journals of Congress made public in 1821 state that the document was signed the following month on August the 2nd. One signer of the declaration, Thomas McKean, stated in 1796, no person signed it on that day, nor for many days after. Clearly, this is one myth that was successfully debunked, but nobody cared enough to change hundreds of years of tradition, and everybody carried on regardless. Number 3. Van Gogh sliced off his ear while suffering a mental illness. Dutch Impressionist painter Van Gogh is famous for more than just his exquisite art. Having suffered with depression for the majority of his life, eventually Van Gogh succumbed to his nightmares and ended his life at age 37. One of the most infamous stories about the artist centers around his ear, which he supposedly chopped off while suffering with his mental illness. In 2009, art historians came forward to argue that his injury was the result of a sword fight between himself and a fellow artist, Paul Gauguin, but the comrades agreed to hush up the incident. Now that's definitely gotta be true friendship. Number 2. Albert Einstein failed maths. Children all over the world have been inspired by this tall tale for decades. If Albert Einstein, the genius and Nobel Prize winner, failed at maths, then there's hope for all of us. Yet, only he didn't fail at maths at all. It was so widely believed that it even made it into Ripley's Believe It or Not newspaper column, but it simply isn't true. In 1935, Einstein laughed at the thought, stating, "I never failed in mathematics. Before I was 15, I had mastered differential and integral calculus." So while that little anecdote may have made you feel better about getting an F, it really was all just a story. Better luck next time. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have diamonds are formed from compressed coal. Forget about all of your get-rich-quick plans, because contrary to belief, diamonds are not formed from compressed coal. While it is a nice idea that beautiful diamonds start as dirty coal, the most likely source is carbon trapped deep inside the Earth from the formation of the planet. Essentially, diamonds are pure carbon that have molded itself into a shiny crystalline structure. Science working on another level that can't be duplicated in the school lab. Nice try though. So that has been the top 15 lies we were all taught in schools. If you did enjoy the video or found it interesting, then why not go check out one of my other videos by clicking a video on screen now. Before you do that though, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single upload. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you in the next video. An egg at all. If you really think about it, the word egg was never mentioned in the nursery rhyme. Evidence suggests that Humpty Dumpty was actually a cannon used by the royalties during the English Civil War of poor Humpty Dumpty. The silly egg fell from a giant wall and shattered into 1,000 pieces, and all of the king's horses and all the king's men just couldn't put Humpty together again. Well, brace yourself, because Humpty Dumpty wasn't actually— Hey everybody, how's it going? Extreme Trends here, and welcome to the top 15 lies we were all taught in school. Now, when you're in school, you put your utmost faith in your teachers to tell you the truth, right? After all, we're all young and very impressionable. With that being said, it might surprise you to know that some of the things that we thought we knew were to be true were in fact actually a big fat lie. I know it's hard to digest, but today we're going to take a trip down memory lane to re-educate you on what is right and what is wrong. It might be a shock to the system, but get your notepads at the ready. Number 15. Was Humpty Dumpty actually an egg? We all know the classic nursery rhyme that tells us of the tragic